Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
This is your co-host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile.
I'm your co-host, John Thomas, paranormal investigator, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our spooky adventure pals? Today we have a very special guest, Elsie Lodde, owner and operator of haunted Airbnb, Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home. Join us and our special guest Elsie as we discuss the Airbnb and all the happenings that occur there.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more. I liked it. Let's go. Bring us back.
Welcome back, everybody. As Ashley introduced, we have a special guest. Her name is Elsie. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Elsie. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here and I'm lucky that I've gotten to meet you already. So, it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, and I feel special because, the night that I ended up going to visit the Airbnb, Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home, was also the night they were celebrating Elsie's birthday. So they had a carrot cake there and they offered me some and I was like, oh my gosh, I get to have cake. Yes, please. I love cake. So I felt special. Ghosts and cake. I feel like there's something there. Spooky,
now I'm even more jealous. Yeah, I was going to say, now I'm even more jealous that I didn't get to go. I missed out on cake too. Damn it.
So I have so many questions and I'm sure John wants to know, but I guess the first question is how long have you owned Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home?
I actually purchased it at the end of May of last year. So I haven't owned it very long. I saw it on Realtor and I just had to have it. Literally, I had to have this house. And so we had harassed my real estate agent to harass the selling agent for a couple weeks until finally I got to see it and I just knew that it was my house. But the little ghosties decided to hide from me until it was too late for me to get out of the deal. So,
do you think you would have backed out of the deal if you knew it was haunted before you bought it? Or was your pull to the house stronger than, let's say, some paranormal activity?
Honestly, I would have still bought it. However, that is with thinking that, most houses that are haunted, they might have a spirit that you hear from once every month or two, instead of having 15 spirits that act up every single day. So it's very different than what I would have expected when I first realized that the house was haunted.
And when you knew, you saw it on Realtor.com or the site you were using, and you knew, this is my house, I have to have this house. Was it with the intention that, I want to live there, or I'm going to have this as, an additional home to occasionally visit and rent, book it out when we're not there?
Okay, so I'm a real estate investor and I run basically I own boarding houses. I buy large houses and I rent them out by the room instead of renting out entire houses to a single family, let's say. And so part of that is generally houses that have a lot of rooms tend to be older. So I actually purchased this house with the intention of renting it out by the room. And then also there's I realized that there was a section that I could kind of shut the doors off and then make that an apartment. And I was going to turn that into an apartment and then also have that for me so I could go visit.
Oh, okay.
That's cool. I do have a question though. So I guess realtors aren't supposed to let you know that the place is haunted? I thought they were supposed to. Maybe that was just a myth. I don't know. I'm being a smartass at the same time, but...
Some states are pretty strict about it. So technically I could have sued. In California, in New York, you have to tell if there's a stigmatized property, and stigmatized properties could include like murders, but being known to be haunted, that is definitely considered a stigmatized property. So they definitely should have let me know, and there's absolutely no way they didn't know, because the tenants who lived there before me, they were the property managers for them, and they told me that they had the same stuff going on when they lived there. And so a lot of the activity predates me. And then the neighbors were telling me, oh yeah, nobody's ever stayed in that house very long. And well, I think I know why.
So when did you first discover that it was haunted? Like, what, were you staying there, or what happened to, like, you're like suddenly, uh-oh, call Ghostbusters?
They hid from me the first 2 times I was there, and it wasn't until my final walkthrough. And in the final walkthrough, you have to walk through every room in the house and make notations and descriptions of every room. And then I got into it was the very last bedroom, which would have been the first one if you came in the front door. Mm-hmm. And I walked in there and I said to Dana and my handyman, I said, I don't like this room. There's a girl in the closet. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. And I can't tell you why. Oh, well, I can tell you why I know that. I am a highly intuitive empath. I have quite a few mediumship abilities. But honestly, I've never, it's pretty rare. I kind of shut that off when I was a teenager. And so it hasn't really been a thing for me. I haven't been involved in the paranormal world or anything until this kind of really started opening it back up. But I should have known earlier, because when we did our home inspection, my home inspector, who I've worked with many times, he did not want to go in there, and he just kept saying, "You don't want to buy this house." And I said, "Yes, I do." And he's like, "No, you don't want to buy this house." And he's like, I don't really want to do an inspection on this house." And then he's making excuses. He's like, "Oh, because it's, it's really big and it's old." But 3 weeks before, I had him do an inspection on a house that was from 1893 and like 4,000 square feet. So, this house is newer technically and younger than that house. So I was kind of like, so I did finally get him to do the inspection. And when when I met up with him, the first thing he said to me was, "What if the house is haunted?" And I was said, "I don't care."
So how old is the house?
So on paper, it says it's 1906, but I have deeds dating back to the 1870s.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little bit confusing to me, but I definitely think it dates back to at least 1877 based on the deeds and the fire maps.
And you've done a lot of research on the home since you bought it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do work in research, and I was lucky because when I went to the county, I met a woman who does is a paranormal docent at Preston Castle, and so she gave me like the names of all the owners of the houses, and I got copies of the deeds, and so she was able to help me with that. And then from there, I just started kind of hitting up all the newspaper forums, newspaper archives, going into the archives of the local newspaper, just everywhere I can to search for all of those names and any potential names, and every way you can search for it to possibly come up with it. And so I've found a couple murders. No, it was a brothel. It was a boarding house. There was some deaths because it was a boarding house for miners, and miners died in the mines. So, I mean, we have everything that makes a good haunt is involved, has happened in this house.
Yeah, there's a big history with the mining accident in that town, right? Like the one, I think there's a big memorial there, right?
Yeah, so it finishes off next weekend. It started 3 weeks ago, but it is the 100-year anniversary of the Argonaut mine fire, and 47 miners lost their lives in that particular incident. So the city has been celebrating that. So they have hung flags, one for the nationality for each per miner who died at 11:30 at night. The night that they realized that happened, they rang the bells all over town, once for every miner who died. And so it, laid wreaths on their plots in the cemetery, which is 700 feet away from the house, by the way. Yeah, we're right in the middle of all of it. Yeah. So yeah, that there has been a lot, and just in general. So like, I don't know if any of the people who died in that disaster had lived in my house, because again, it's kind of hard with boarding houses to track down them unless the owner's name is attached to it. So like one of the murders, it said, oh, this happened in Steve Tofinelli's spa. It said that in the newspaper. So that's why I was able to connect that murder to the boarding house. But so there's no way for me to track those down. But I have found one of the children of one of the owners of the house did die in a mine accident. He basically was out partying all night. There was a political rally and everything there turned into a dance. And so he was up drinking and partying all night, went to work. And then that night when he was getting off his shift, he fell asleep or passed out and fell down the shaft. Like 1,600 feet. So that was one. And then there was another instance where it was another one of the boarders fell 1,300 feet or something like that, broke his neck, and then they brought him back to the house.
Whoa.
Now, the doctor did live across the street. There's a beautiful blue Queen Anne across the street, but why they didn't take him straight to the hospital and they brought him to the boarding house is kind of beyond me, but yeah. So there's been lots of events definitely surrounding the house, and then some of the other factors also. So the whole area is really traumatized. It is Miwok tribal land, right? So we have the natives, we have the brothels, and just the Wild West living, plus the miners, plus the Chinese who also were brought in and not treated very well. And then I'm also on a creek. The reason why Jackson was settled is because we have a year-round creek, and that literally, the foundation of my house is the retaining wall for that creek.
I actually had the privilege of being able to go see Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home, and thank you very much for letting me come out and tag along on that wonderful evening where I got to explore the house and tour the house. That was, I was telling John about it. It feels like when you're inside, like each room is carrying the energy of a different time period. And it's not the decor. It's just, it just feels like you're in a different house in each room. And it's a really awesome house. From the outside, it looks small. Like it's deceiving. It looks like a small home, and you get inside and it's room after room after room after level after, it's just, it extends so far, and I'm just like, wait, how is this all fitting in one home? And it's awesome, but it's definitely spooky. The one thing that I was telling John about being in the home is that how each person reacted to it was different. And so, like, I know that one of the paramigos that was there, she was really having issues with the closet in the back room. I think that was the furthest back to the right if you're facing the back of the house. And I know you mentioned some people don't like staying in the room furthest left where like your mother-in-law sleeps. And for me, it was actually the addition to the house that I was feeling the most like uneasy, like that back hallway. I guess that it was the newest part of the house, but borders the creek. And I was actually very curious about that, the creek. I didn't go back to the creek, but I felt like the back room where the addition was put on, and anything past that wall of the room that you said that ghosts don't like people to be in, anything past that wall and back, I felt like the most kind of just uneasiness. Like I was uneasy, and I was curious about the creek, and I know you and Crystal had gone back to look at the creek, and part of me was just like, nope, not tonight. And I don't know why, but I was just like, that I don't need to go to tonight. Which is, I wanted to talk to you about at some point to figure out what in the world happened back there, because that's where I felt the most like, woo, on edge. Like I could go anywhere, and that was the one space.
So the solarium is definitely, which is what you're talking about, the addition is the solarium. Mm-hmm. It is definitely one of the most active places in the house, but it's like the the rooms that are attached to them too. So there's the creepy room that I don't like, so I did not turn it into a bedroom. There's the solarium, and then there's the pink room, and they're just a square. And that's definitely where the most activity is. You hear banging and stomping back there a lot in the solarium. And footsteps. So there's always a lot of noise back there. And then the creek it's a whole other issue. So one of the people who had lived in the house, the second owner of my property is a woman. She was a single woman, Maggie. Pretty sure she ran it as a brothel. She got married like 6 years later, to a man named William. She ended up dying. I don't know what from, because newspapers don't care about women and children, so they don't tell us. But he ended up drowning in the creek in 1909. So there's that. And one of the previous tenants told me that because he slept in the basement apartment now, in the bedroom that's right there on the creek, and he said he woke up one day and he saw like a spirit walking in the creek back there. But I also think we have water elementals, and that also might be some of it, because next door there is a witch. Not a judgment on her personality. She's a wonderful human being, right? An actual witch. And there is a path that crosses the creek right next to her front door to her residence. And she says she won't go over there. She says she hears things splashing down there. Like, there's something creepy in that creek to her. So she will never go over there, even though literally the pathway, the bridge to cross the creek is right outside her door. So, she's had some issues with it too.
Okay, so then I don't feel so bad. Because I was just like, everybody else is getting senses from other parts of the house. And for me, it's the newest part of the house where I'm like, oh, I don't want to be back here long, and I don't want to go with them to the creek, and I'm gonna stay further in the house. So
when I'm there by myself, I sleep on the couch, and it's just because that's like the furthest away I can get from that creepy part of the house. And so I have like my pillow and my blanket that I use every time I stay there, and I sleep on the couch. I feel too claustrophobic, I guess, in some of the other rooms, but I also want to like be far away from all of it.
And your husband won't sleep there, right?
He's never been there at night at all. And of course, he says that he doesn't believe in ghosts, but he believes in demons and aliens and all that stuff. But he doesn't believe in ghosts. And he says that the reason why he doesn't believe in ghosts is because that people lie and there's no proof. And I was like, oh, in comparison to all the proof of demons? Okay. I mean, I believe in all this stuffs, it's like, I don't know anything and I don't pretend to know anything, but I'm also not going to be like, oh, well, there's no such thing as, the Flatwoods monster or whatever, because I haven't seen it. He also likes to be difficult. So sometimes I don't know which, if it's just because he wants to be difficult or what, but yeah, he's never been there alone. He's never been there alone. He's never been there at night. And he's actually only spent about a total of 8 hours in the house in completion. But you met his mother.
Yeah.
So his mother stays there with me all the time, and she also didn't used to believe in ghosts, but now it's just undeniable. So
yeah, I remember I asked her when I was there, like, hey, you're sleeping in the room with like, I think the most activity, right? So how does that, like, do you not believe in ghosts? Like, does it not bother you? And she said, oh, I believe, I just don't mind sharing a room. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I don't mind sharing my space, so it's fine. And it's like, oh, wow, okay.
That was the first time she's ever slept in that room, though. I kind of just was always like, she's kind of like just flipping about it, and kind of she never gets worked up when like all this, we've had paranormal investigations and all this stuff is happening. She's just like sitting there kind of like bored, like in the same, because we happen to be in the same room she's in. She's not following us around participating in it, but so yeah, we kind of yeeted her to the far end. So that was the first time she's actually slept in there, but she said it was fine and she's happy to sleep there all the time. So
I remember we were talking through the app, right? To the voice. I don't remember what that's called. When it's cycling through the radio channels.
Oh, yes.
We were on the app, and I remember we turned the lights off and we have the different equipment on the table, and she fell asleep. She's in the back chair and just fell asleep. And for me, I'm so on edge. I couldn't even possibly like think about falling asleep.
That would probably be me, because I'm so used to stuff like that I'm like, if nothing's happening, I can fall asleep.
Yeah, she passed out.
the year of the 100-year anniversary, that night, I had a paranormal group out, and the house was just insane because they had 2 mediums plus, there were some of us larges. But there was just a lot of activity and energy in the house. And so at about 10:45, the REM pod started going on an SOS. It started SOSing, and it wouldn't stop. We actually had to turn it off because it wouldn't stop. And she's just sitting in that red chair, like zoned out, like she's taking care, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, like what does this mean? Like what's happening here?" And so like we found out later that I guess at 10:45 is when the skip, which is like the elevator, when they realized that wasn't working. And so at the same time, the REM pod, so before that it had been going off like constant, but not in a tone. And it was like 2 minutes before we shut it off, where it was just SOSing the whole time. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of some crazy activity, but yeah, she couldn't be bothered to care one way or another about it.
Now,
But
when did you decide, you know what, I'm gonna market this as haunted? Because it's one thing to have an Airbnb, and it's another thing to say this is Bethany's home sweet haunted home, which I love it. That is so fun and yet spooky. And so, like, when did you decide, you know what, I'm gonna lean all the way into this and just haunted Airbnb?
I did it for two reasons. One, I don't think it's fair for people who are empaths or sensitives to not know ahead of time that the house is haunted. Because you might be looking for a vacation and not want that kind of nonsense in your life, right? So that's part of it. And of course there's people who are scared. I'm not really so worried about them, but I'm really worried about the people like me or anybody else who like wants to go and not have to deal with that. So that was part of it. And then the second thing is they mess with the house all the time. The lights work, don't work. Like the first Airbnb guest I had, the stove wouldn't work one day. And so like the next day I went up there to fix it and it worked just fine. I no longer do that. I no longer call electricians or anything when stuff isn't working, because I just know tomorrow it'll work again. So like if you don't know the spirits are messing with all this stuff, you might think I'm a slumlord and the house is falling down or something, but it's like, why isn't this electrical working properly? Well, it's the spirits. It's not the house. So
And that's a lot of spirits in one home, right?
yeah.
You said at least 15.
Yeah.
And how have you been able to document like how many there are? Like, because I know when I was there, you had like you had names of different spirits, and it's like how did you come to find out that there's 15 individual ones and their names?
Yeah. So I had the list of the owners of the property. And even then I didn't start out going well. But then the woman who works for the county, she's like, I want to see if this place is haunted. So she just came over like you did. So she came over and immediately was like slapped by the activity in the house. And like they were just always, it's kind of hard to tell when there's so many people there, but they're always like making noise in the other room, not the room you're in, but the other room. So there's only two of us. So we know those noises aren't us or anybody human. And then she got like lightheaded and, all that stuff that kind of is pretty common for people the second they walk in the door. Well, we went down into the basement and she walked down there. She introduced herself and she asked for his name or asked who was there. And he said, Steve. And at that time, I only had his legal name of Stefano. And I could not find anything except for his obituary. Well, so I was like, Steve. And then I was like, oh, Stefano. And then at that point in time, I was able to do searches in the newspaper for Steve. And then the plethora of information of all of his criminal backgrounds and all this stuff started coming up. So I got all this family history information, all the family. And I did speak to his daughter, who she's 86. She's still alive. And so she also gave me a lot of background information on her family. And she said, too, that her whole family's there.
Wow.
Yeah. And so armed with those names, we could then try to communicate using like the K2s. They're really good about that. And saying like, yes or no. Hey, is this Linda? Is this Fred? Is this, and then we've just gotten so much, when paranormal groups have come out, we've just gotten so much activity from those things where you just kind of learn more and more about them. And then some of it's assumption, some of it's my empathic abilities, but there's still several of them. I have no idea who they are. I just know where they're located and kind of a gist of them, but I do not know the names of all of the spirits in the house, but I definitely know who some of the spirits are.
Okay. When you said that it said its name was Steve, where did you hear that on? Was it like something you audibly heard, just like she heard, or was it through one of your the equipment?
Were using the Necrophonics app.
Okay.
And so she said, "Do you know, what's your name?" And then basing it off of it being Stefano, she started asking, like, "Do you know this person?" And this person being family names, but she got them wrong and there was no response. And then she said, "What's my name?" And it just said clear as day, "It is Marcy." So not only did it say Steve, but it said her name. And I have the recording of him saying his name because I have cameras in my basement because it floods, like on my Facebook page. So you can go back and listen to it too. So it's not just her and I that heard it, like it's out there in perpetuity for everyone to hear this interaction that first occurred. But yeah, now armed with this, oh, it's Steve, and now knowing all of his history and his background and all this information that I've gathered from his daughter, from the records, from, all those newspaper articles and everything else. We've been able to, I feel like I have a really good relationship with Steve, and, it's a strange relationship, but I feel like he's almost like family to me now. So.
Yeah, I remember when I was there, we went down to the basement when you were showing me around, and that was an interesting space because when I spent a little bit of time when I got there in the kitchen of the basement, and I was fine and had a great time singing happy birthday. But I know later when you and I did a tour of the house and we went to the other side of the basement eventually, I remember I got really foggy. It felt like I told you and the Paramigos, it felt almost like I was floating. And when I would go upstairs, I sat on the couch, I was fine, like it calmed down. But then when I went back down into the basement later, when the Paramigos were there and we were all in the little group together, same thing happened. I remember though that the second time I was down there, I actually started to get pretty nauseous. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel so great going upstairs. And then I went upstairs and sat on the couch and it calmed down and I was fine again. So I was like, maybe I should just stay out of the basement. And I know you mentioned that a lot of people feel that when they enter the home, and you're usually like, that'll carry on into the street. So just make sure you pace yourself slowly when you leave the house. Don't just book it out of there. My question to you though is, coming from the side of someone who always wants to look at different angles of things, especially when it comes to lightheadedness and maybe nausea, have you ever had the home checked to kind of dispel things?
So when I first bought the house and when I posted on one of the paranormal groups online, somebody said that I should probably get the carbon dioxide or monoxide, whichever one that is, tested. But of course, in California, you have to have those legally to even sell the house. But I was just like, okay, well, I'll totally check that. So I went to the two Lowe's and bought the ones with the numbered digital readout. So there's no confusion whatsoever about it working properly. I bought two of them and it came up with 0. Also, considering the house doesn't even have internal plumbing in the house, I'm not sure how that would even work, but I definitely did have that check. And of course, by then I'd already had footsteps appear on the stairs, which carbon monoxide's not putting footsteps on your stairs, like baby footsteps. I don't have children or particularly care for them. So I definitely am not having children running around this house without their shoes on. And so, yeah, so it's definitely something I looked into. I do work in research. And the first thing I try to do, because I always want to be right, I try to dispel everything. I have really tried, besides doing the research, I try to debunk everything because I don't want to look like an idiot,
Yeah, I know that I was extremely fascinated with your motion lights. I was paying attention because I'm kind of weird like that when it comes to small details. And so when I had gotten lightheaded, I went upstairs and sat on the couch. Everything went dark, and because there was no motion, and then it would randomly just turn on. And it was just the one over the stairs that would turn on. And I was like, well, maybe they're setting it off at the basement, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty far in the other room still. So who knows? But I kept watching which light it was that was going off. And I'm like, okay, it's been the same one since I walked into the house. At the beginning, it was always the right light. But then when I was sitting up there by myself and the lights started going off all the way, the hall, the stairs, and then the one over the stairs would go on, it was suddenly the left light. And I'm like, oh, that's different.
And when everybody left, I was walking the Paramigos out, and I noticed that the lights over the stairs kept turning on, which I thought was very unusual because the only people in the house at the time were my sister-in-law and friend and my mother, and they were in their rooms, which are, with their doors shut. So nobody was walking around, but those lights kept turning on.
Definitely heard the laughter when you were in the room with the Paramigos next to the stairs. That set me off, like a little uneasy when I heard the laughter kind of echo up from the basement. And I was standing like with my back to the stairs, and I was just like, nope, that was nothing. That was to nope. And then Crystal, she's just like, did you guys hear that? And I'm like, oh no. I was like, yeah, I sure did. It came from the basement. And it wasn't muffled. It wasn't like your private residence, because later I did put my ear to their wall and I could hear them in there later in the evening, but it was so muffled. That wouldn't have echoed up the way that laughter did. It echoed up like someone was in the one of the rooms in the basement that was open and just laughing, and it like just a melody echoing up. And I was like, oh no, I don't think her friends are down there.
And the staircase is just an active place in general, with like, you hear footsteps, you smell scents, all these things happen, in the stairwell as well. And that's the reason I put the motion activated lights, is because people kept tripping in the stairs, like even during the day. And so I just feel like it's a very congested area, like the residual energy from the people who would come down there to the gambling hall. Like there's just a lot of traffic, residual traffic going through that section.
How many investigations have you had done?
7, 8.
Wow. You only had it a little over a year. That's a lot of investigations.
Well, everybody who comes wants to come back, that's for sure. So, there have been plenty, but I take it as an opportunity to try to learn as much as possible about my roommates. So
now, I think that's great. Like, because if it was something that was like, this lady is just creating this, leading into this haunted story and spooking up the place, if that were the case and there was no actual foundation to that, right? You wouldn't have so many investigations going on, because the first few would have been like, nope, nothing. But even recently, one of our paranormal podcast crossover guests, they were messaging me from your home, and they're like, oh my gosh, Ashley, there is so much activity going on and we just got here. I was like,
yeah, I mean, it was definitely an active little night for the three of us. Again, there's just certain energy that the spirits really play with. I think the night you were there, because we had so many skeptics, non-believers, aka my family there, it does pull down the energy quite a bit. And so when you have people who are definitely like believing and excited and want to communicate with them, they want to communicate back.
Right. And we've talked about that before in a couple episodes with investigating, because I used to host, co-host some investigations in some public places before. And it, like you said, it just depends on the whole atmosphere, basically. But I do have a question though. So with all the 15 ghosts and stuff that you have you ever heard them argue, or do they ever like stay in there? Do they just stay in their own spots? And the only reason I ask about the arguing is because I dated this lady before, and she had this older couple ghost, whatever, that would argue all the time in the bathroom, and I would hear them in the bathroom all the time.
I remember. I remember your ex-girlfriend's crazy house from the podcast. I have a married couple, and so yes, sometimes during Estes methods, it'll be clear all of a sudden that there's arguing going on, and because it's first there's like a first couple of comments, and you're like, what? huh? You're not answering my questions. And then next, you know what, you're like, oh, wait, they're talking to each other. They're not even talking to us. Because
Right.
one of my spirits likes to grab women's butts and touch women in general. And so, like, there was one day that he kept touching this woman, and then he's like, stop it, you dick. Like, stop touching her. And then he's like, it's only natural. Like, and so, like, it didn't make sense at first, and it didn't make sense to the person doing the Estes method
Right.
who was speaking this stuff. But I was dying laughing. I'm like, oh, Fred and Linda. Like, you guys need to get it together.
It's only
So
natural. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah, super weird. And I have that on, I have all that on video, and it's super weird. But sometimes it's kind of funny, the
Yes,
stuff that
exactly.
they pop up with. So for sure them, and I'm sure Steve, Linda, Fred, and Marilda, they're family. So I'm sure they are mostly together, although I think I thought it was Fred, said that he doesn't talk to Steve. So, I don't really know. And then I have a whole family who's in this pink room, and that's Fred and Linda's room too. And then I think William, the one who drowned in the creek, he hangs out right outside of that room. So I think it's really, like, for me, it's very crowded in there, but I don't think that, like, the family and Fred and Linda communicate.
So speaking of crowded, you did mention that there is a portal in the basement, and I was curious about that, how you came to determine that was there, and have you tried to access that in any way other than just kind of preserving it?
I want nothing to do with it. I'm happy with the ghosts that we have there. I think that they're a fine bunch, and I don't particularly like it when there's new visitors around. So, that section of the basement has always creeped me out. I'm fine in the basement, but it's like in like the far corner, and there's like a weird hallway with another door, and a previous tenant put a cross on that door, and it's just weird. And so I've always hated that. And the first paranormal group who came through, one of the guys who calls himself a demonologist, he's like, yeah, you have a portal there, and it's the one section I hate. And so that's something that's come up over and over again. So, we're just talking about the what in the came. She said the same thing. She like walked through it and she was like, whoa, like, this is a door. And I think actually I have more than one, at least one outside the gate of the house, the one in the basement, and then possibly another one and then the mirror. So yeah, there's a lot, and that doesn't help, because yeah, we do get randoms that appear when people are doing investigations. I'm like, there's no Florence here. Who's Florence? Who's David? I don't know who these people are. Now, of course, again, I don't know everybody who's lived or died in the house, but I definitely think that Steve kind of controls who comes in the house, and that's why he hangs out in the basement by the portal. I think he's bouncing, but I if I had my way, it'd be closed. Like, I'm good with these 15, but we don't need any more things.
I do have a question, actually, just kind of based on what you said. And I was triggered by the word that you used for the guy who's a demonologist. So, Airbnb your home, you don't know who's coming in. Do you cleanse your home between guests? Or what do you do? Because we don't know the guests that are coming in. What if they're utilizing the portals in a way that's not so savory, or the energy within your home?
So, well, one thing is usually the basement is locked, so it's not available for Airbnb guests unless it is like a paranormal investigation with a group that I trust or I'm there.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Like, I do have a rule about no Ouija boards, but honestly, the more I'm looking into all this, it really seems like, what's the difference between using a Ouija board and a ghost box? Like, I don't, like, theoretically, it just doesn't make sense to me that, one way or another, and it is definitely a concern. Now, again, I knew nothing about paranormal anything, so I just learned so much about, gemstones, or using like all those crystals, thanks to you and your podcast. I know nothing about this stuff. Like, honestly, it's just a matter of, I bought this house to be a long-term rental. I couldn't get tenants to stay in it. I have to do something else. How about Airbnb? But definitely there's a lot more that, like, I'm learning, now as I learn more about like the whole paranormal world, about I don't know how to cleanse anything. I barely clean myself. No, I'm just kidding. I'm like, the house is really clean. You know that.
Yeah.
But so I don't know how to, but that's not to say I'm definitely open to learning how to do these things. But I have had it cleared a couple of times. And some of the spirits disappear for a couple months and then reappear. But it genuinely is a concern for me that there is a portal. And I've like really tried to ask people, like, how do you close these? Like, is it possible to close these? Because, it is a concern of mine that something really creepier than what's already in there now is going to come through. Things move all the time, right? And sometimes I'm just wondering if it's like a glitch in the matrix that things move, or the crabby woman who's in the closet right outside of that solarium in the creepy room I hate.
I knew she was in the closet.
The only
you wouldn't say it, but I knew it. I was telling John that closet. I'm like, something about that closet. I was like, there's something in there and I'm going to find it.
Yeah, it's her. And the only thing she ever says is like, F you and get out. And
that kind of woman.
I have wondered if she thinks we're the ghosts, like if there's like some sort of dimensional things. And besides the fact that the house is a TARDIS, right? Like,
exactly, yes.
It looks like it's 800 square feet, but it's 4,000 square feet. Like it's a very everything. And if you walk that back hallway, it looks like there's a gap between those two closets, but I don't think that there is. It's just that everything is just dimensionally a little bit weird. And so, I do believe that the portal that's outside the gate, that's for like elementals. It's not for others, it's not for human spirits, earthbound spirits. But I think that there's just so much going on in this house, and that's why it is so active, and that's why there's so many spirits. Plus, the house itself is alive. I've never been to a house that's alive before, but this house is very much alive. And it builds attachments. It suckered me from the get-go. And it's not just me. Like, my housekeeper drives by the house every single day just to make sure it's fine. The tenants were only supposed to be there like 2 months, and they were gonna, in between selling and buying a house, they haven't even started looking for a house, and it has been 4 months now. So there's, it really does collect people. And I think that's why we have so many spirits there, is because the house does collect people. So I always joke that when I die, I'm going to be their roommate. So
yeah, Ghost box and Ouija board are not the same thing. I'm just gonna for anyone that isn't
again, I'm learning. I'm definitely learning, but my science, like I said, I work in research. I have a very logical mind. But what's the difference between communicating with spirits and communicating with spirits? What is the difference?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Ashley. I know Ashley just doesn't like Ouija boards, and I get that.
No, because explain to me how a ghost box works, John.
Well, basically, it's, it goes through the frequencies with the radio stuff. If we're talking about like the spirit box, basically the same thing, because I have a smaller one. I think I showed you mine. You're still using it to communicate. You're still asking questions. You're still getting answers. It doesn't matter if you have a board or just a
that's
recorder.
Where we disagree, because if you revisit our episode of the Ouija boards with Lou and Lady Luna, what is the agent when you're using a Ouija board versus the agent when you're using a ghost box? You're asking questions to a box that's channeling through radios, but the box itself is channeling. What is channeling when you're using a Ouija board?
It's all the person's intent, but still.
It's the person that's channeling. They are allowing it to come through them.
What if you're using a K2 meter and so you're asking questions?
What's the difference between using a K2 meter? So for me, any of this ghost equipment, paranormal investigation equipment, we are looking at something electric to provide the answer for us. Yes, we are engaging with it. We're looking at these things, but the difference is we are looking at them, waiting for an answer, hoping that it answers. When we are using a Ouija board, or we're using a scrying pendant, or anything that requires our hand movements to answer for us, we are asking something to come through us to guide our movements to provide that answer. So we're actually temporarily allowing like possession, for lack of a better term. We're channeling mediumship through ourselves. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we're inviting something in to gain control over our hands or our whatever fingertips to provide the answers for us. When we're interacting with K2s or ghost boxes or spirit boxes or any of those things, we are asking questions, but something else is being utilized to answer that question, right? Something else, whether it's radio stations being cycled or lights being lit up. Those are the things we're waiting for to respond to that interaction. When it comes to Ouija boards or scrying pendants or automatic writing or anything like that, we are in essence saying, use me as your vessel to answer those questions.
But how would that leave a portal behind and not just you becoming, let's say, possessed?
I don't think it leaves a portal behind. I think that my only thing was saying there's a difference between Ouija boards and ghost boxes, and why I would see you would be hesitant about having a Ouija board in the space versus the ghost box.
Because it is my number one rule on Airbnb is no Ouija board.
Yeah, and I think that was my only thing, is not necessarily saying one's bad or one's, it's just for the ghost boxes and the meters and all those things, I think they're interacting with what's already there. Mm-hmm. Right? But with the Ouija boards, I think sometimes we channel things and beacon it in that may not already be there, if that makes sense. Like inviting something like, please come to me, seeking it out. And that's kind of, I think if you're on a portal, that might pull things in that weren't already there. That's just my opinion. I don't know.
I agree with you with the whole pulling stuff in from the portal. As far as it being there, like it could have been there back in the 1800s. You know, I mean, you never know. Whoever was there first, they probably just set it up, and it's just been there and not closed ever since. So.
Well, and it doesn't have to necessarily be set up, right? I mean, it could be a natural energetic vortex, right, that your house is on. And given the history with the miners and the passing aways of pretty violent traumatic deaths, right? Whether it be in the mines or in the creek, that's a lot of energy building up on top of that. And so that might have already swayed what might have naturally been there. So we know there are, I shouldn't say we know, science has not proven this, but science as we know it. We, as a community in the metaphysical community, are aware that there are energetic hotspots, right? Just everywhere, pockets of energy. Nothing woo-woo about that. It's not like, woo, aliens or ghosts. There's just a high level of energy. You can read it with your, readers, like the magnetic readers. What are those, the EMFs? There's so many things that we sense as people. That's why we build, like, there's no coincidence. We build things on these areas. It's like the chicken or the egg. People are like, oh, is it a vortex because we built that there? No, I think people gravitated to those spaces because they felt that energy kind of vibrating there. So when it comes to your house, perhaps you already had some kind of like energy pocket there. Long ago, like John was saying, back in the 1800s, someone probably didn't force a portal open in there. Chances are you just had an energetic hotspot. But the things that have happened around your home and close to your home kind of elevated what's occurring there, if that makes sense.
It's definitely elevated my own mediumship.
Yeah, and it might be why when you saw it, because you are so sensitive to those energetic, frequencies, and you are empathic, it's possible because I know I briefly mentioned this at your house, is like people who are energetically empathic, it doesn't stop by just being in person with someone. Someone who is actually pretty sensitive is going to be able to sense those energetic frequencies through photographs, through videos. There's a reason I don't watch the ghost hunting shows on TV. And it's not because I believe every place is haunted that they're going to. My concern is the fact that what if one of them is? And then that kind of puts me on edge or kind of triggers my energy in a way I don't like. And so I just don't watch those.
It's funny because I never watched them before, but I do now. And the reason why, it's the same thing as like why I used to watch Hoarders, because I watched Hoarders to make me feel so clean, so good about, how clean my house is. And then these ghost shows, they make me feel really good about the fact of how nice my spirits are.
Like my ghosts are nice.
Anybody. Yeah, they're not scratching. Sure, they might give people headaches or whatever, but and I do have a very strange connection with my house where the house gets rid of people that I think I don't like, or they're very rude people that I wouldn't like. And it's very unusual because like I don't even know I don't like the people, like because I've had these groups come in and sometimes there's people in those groups I don't know them, and then they'll chase them off, and then I'll go to like. I went to go to this guy's Facebook page to apologize, looked at his Facebook page. I was like, I'm not contacting this guy. I do not want to speak to this guy. And so I'm like, is that why they made him so sick that he had to leave? Is because this is not somebody I would want in my house.
It makes sense to me. So I would think that the spirits would definitely do that.
They're like dogs almost. I mean, not that I'm calling, ghost dogs, but like they are animal friends that have like extra senses. And then someone comes in the house and, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, my dog's never behaved this way. And then you figure out why. That makes sense.
I had another person who came in who was a narcissist, and I was like, I wasn't there for it, but I was watching on the cameras, and the whole time I'm just like, just stop talking. Be quiet, stop talking. Because like when you ask a question and you don't give time for them to respond, it's really frustrating for me because what are you here for, right? Just to do, TikTok live videos, because that's not what this is for, And so during an Estes method, the spirits literally told this person to leave and then told them to stop talking and to be quiet. So, and I was dying. I thought it was hilarious.
I love
but
it.
Then I started wondering, I'm like, was that me or was that them? Or is it both? Just because, this energy, maybe everybody doesn't like this kind of energy. But I mean, I don't know. I'm starting to see more and more of it, though, where the house is kind of being mean to people. But again, that one I knew I was just like annoyed by. But this last one, I didn't know anything about this guy, and I didn't know that I wouldn't have liked him until I said the next day, and I was like, nope, I'm not going to message him. Good riddance. But mostly the spirits at worst will make you like kind of nauseous, lightheaded, dizzy, and you can't just go outside. A lot of times people try to go outside and sit on the porch. That doesn't work because that porch is right above that portal. You have to go across the street to get out of that energy field.
Maybe the house is protecting you as much as you're being the caretaker for the home.
I believe that.
Yeah, exactly. That works.
And I know you said the house feels almost it's alive, right? It feels alive to you. So potentially it's the house that's protecting you. And, you're viewed as the caretaker. You're the one that is in kind of the symbiotic relationship with the home.
Yeah, but I think me and Steve have a good relationship too. So I don't know if it's the house or if it's Steve, but it could be all of it. It could be all of them. And it actually, I've never really considered too much, even though I've had the gifts that I've had my whole life. I haven't really worked on them. I don't really know much about them, but I have started wondering about doing like a past life regression, because I am kind of wondered if that's why I was so drawn to this house, if that's why I'm so attached to this house, does that maybe have something to do with it? So
I mean, you never know until you try.
I could see me being Maggie. I could totally see me being a madam. And I did have an irrational hatred of her husband from the beginning. So, and usually my instincts for those things are pretty good. So, maybe that's the reason why. I don't see me being able to ever sell this house, as much as it drives me crazy, which is why I'm like, I have to make this a successful business because I need to pay the mortgage. I tell Steve that all the time. I tell the spirits that all the time. They're currently trying to chase out the tenants. And because I think, when they came, they were only supposed to stay 2 or 3 months. So they TikTok, they should be gone. And so they've started becoming way more active in the apartment and doing some things that are just kind of mean. Like, the magnets on their fridge, they have these pictures of their grandkids. They're moving the magnets to cover the grandchildren's faces. So it's just
not nice.
Yeah, it's just kind of mean. So I feel like they're like TikTok, time for you to get out, you know. But I keep
Stage
telling
you're
you, right?
welcome.
Yeah, you need to be nice to them because without them, like I can't pay the mortgage. And then, some random person's going to come in here and then what? They're going to paint the bookcase or tear it all down. Like, you need to be nice. Like, so I'm consistently reminding them that I have to pay my mortgage.
Speaking of the bookcase, have you ever, I know you've only had the house for a little over a year. Have you done like any kind of full house investigation to see if there are any hidden panels, hidden rooms, hidden areas?
No, I said I do question if there's a space between the two where the creepy lady closet is and the closet on the other side is. But when you knock on one wall, you can feel it on the other wall. So I don't think that there is. So yeah, I'm not really sure how I would go about that, but there's nothing that stands out really to me. I can do some more wall tapping to try to figure it out. The thing is the house was remodeled in like the mid 90s and a lot of things were changed, like where the location of the staircase. And so, like, for example, with one of the murders in the newspaper, it said it happened in the front room, but I don't know where that is now in comparison to where it would have been before. Like the shape of the house on the outside hasn't changed, but there's 4 external doors. So where is that? So I'm kind of figure that in the 90s, probably anything would have been resolved at that time, but I mean, I don't know. Because at least they weren't shady.
Yeah,
They
they would
weren't
have discovered that.
they weren't bootlegging and selling stolen gold and running, speakeasies and stuff. And so, I would think that they would have found whatever those issues are at that time.
That's true. That's fair.
So I feel like when I'm there, it's the normal spirits that are coming through. It's the family. It's kind of the owners. And a lot of times when I'm not there, is when it seems like that portal is activated and there's random people I've never heard about that are the ones that are coming through. So I do feel like it is different. You get different things when there's different people in there, but very specifically, or maybe it's just because I expect them to come through, or maybe because they want to come through to me. I'm not sure the reason why, but when I'm there, it seems to be a lot more of the family that's coming through for me.
And that might be the protective aspect we were talking about. If you're there, it's like, hey, only these spirits are allowed around because she's here. So
that's a lovely thought, actually, and makes me almost feel ashamed to sleep on the couch.
I mean, that's just what I think. Like, I do feel like this house is very much connected to you. So I would imagine if you're there, it would be that element of gotta protect her.
And it's actually really frustrating to me, this fear that I have, or this just, I don't know. I don't like to be there alone at night because nothing bad has ever happened in this house. Sure, a couple things have fallen off the walls and broken, but really it's like it's pretty benign, everything that happens there. And the fact that I hate being there at night by myself, it's kind of frustrating for me, for my very logical brain to be like, Elsie, there's no problems. Like, why do you feel this way? But I just don't like to be there alone at night, especially in that back half of the room where it always feels like you're being watched. It always feels like somebody is there. And I do have spirits that hang out in the bathroom. I know this because they smoke in there. And it will reek of cigarette smoke in the bathroom because we get all sorts of, olfactory apparitions in the house, and cigarette smoke is one of them. But yeah, so I definitely know somebody hangs out in the bathroom quite a bit. So it's kind of weird too, but it's very frustrating to me. And that's kind of why I've had so many paranormal investigators come out, because I want to learn as much as possible, because the more I humanize them, the hope is that it's less scary for me, right? So the basement used to be kind of creepy, but now that I know it's Steve down there, it's not creepy at all. Like, it's fine for me. I'll go down there day, night. It doesn't matter. And so I'm trying to, hopefully the more I learn, the more I can kind of humanize these people. And I do see them as people. They're just unalive people, right? And I try to remind myself that all the time. But again, I don't like to be there alone at night. And it starts about an hour before sundown is when the energy totally shifts in the house. And you got there after that point, because for me during the day, the energy is so amazing in the house. It's like Disneyland. It just oozes just warmth and love during the day. But then at night, it's a totally different experience.
Supernatural party gets to poppin'.
Mm-hmm. So the house has definitely ruined me for other places, but I'm not connected into like really knowing who or how or what. I just have like this very logical, like I want to study all the stuff, but I'm also kind of overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah. You've got a lot going on at the house. So it's definitely trying to pick the pieces apart is interesting.
Basically, the only time I ever look at the cameras is when I get alerts of motion or sound. And usually the sound I ignore. So it's usually just the motion because I'm like, wait, who's in the basement?
Who's triggering the motion?
Yeah, there's no one in the basement. So it's pretty rare I even look at the cameras. And even so, it's only those notifications. I don't go through and watch the hours and hours of all the stuff that happens in there. And I've actually been kind of surprised by how little activity has been in the unfinished part of the basement, because in the basement apartment, literally it was a daily occurrence that I was getting those lights, or I'm like, wait, that's a weird looking aura thing that's moving, or, something moving, lights flashing, voice. I've only had one disembodied voice that popped up. It sounded like it said good morning to me.
See, the house loves you.
Yeah, like really quiet, like a little girl voice. Good morning. I can't leave cameras in the Airbnb, right? Because it's public space, right. So I'm not putting them up there. But
just face it into the vortex,
right? Well, that's why the one's kind of facing towards the end of the hall.
I would put it all the way in, like just face it there and see what happens. That might be exciting.
I'll have to see who, if I have an extension cord or something for that. But when I've had them upstairs, they've never connected properly, and it's broken 3 cameras.
Oh my gosh.
So like I'll put it on upstairs, it'll work fine. I leave, I get, 5 miles away and it shuts off. It says it can't connect to the internet. Up there, I have way better internet than I have here. And it's literally will be like right next to the router. And this happens. And I said, so like if I go through my list on like try to go through my cameras, there's like 3 of them that say Jackson that are broken. And I've been using the same ones at my house for like 5-6 years, and they last 3 months there. So that, so I don't have as much activity. And even then now the one in the basement it'll shut down usually when there's people around. It'll shut down for hours and hours. So I don't know if they're drawing the, from the camera or what, but it'll be like, oh, great, there was a paranormal investigation there that day, and I don't get to watch it because, the camera
went down.
Record those hours,
Oh, that's nuts.
So, yeah, so I'd love to have, more information because again, I started the page before I started the Airbnb. I started the page back in September of last year. And at that point in time, I was still trying to make it a long-term rental, but my nieces came and we just had so much activity that happened while they were there with us. And so at that point in time, I started the page because I was like, oh, I need to have a place to document the stuff that happens. And I didn't open the Airbnb up until the end of January because at that point in time, I no longer had tenants upstairs. And so I was like, okay, well, let's change this up. I've had the page longer than the actual house just because, I wanted to document all that stuff, so you can go back and see the weird handprints and the footprint and all that stuff from way back when, because it's all still in there. And so, I love it when people, if people were to give me their own activity so I can keep track of it as well. But unfortunately, most of the groups I've had have not done that thus far.
Last question I have for you. Why Bethany?
So I was told during the first paranormal investigation that was the name of the girl in the closet. Now, a medium I had there recently said that her name was Elizabeth. It was not Bethany. And I said, I don't care. Like, it's too late.
I don't care. We're committed to the name.
So again, I've always been, so I just referred to that as Bethany's room. That was Bethany's room, because that's the only name I had at the time. And again, I really have fought really hard to humanize these people to make myself feel better. And again, I also want to acknowledge them and as much as possible. So, so I trusted this person, the girl in the closet, her name was Bethany. So she was the first one I knew. And so it was her house because, sure, it should probably be Steve's
house.
Steve's spa or something. But yeah, no, it's Bethany instead. So people always think my name is Bethany. And I'm like, no, it would have been much easier to name it after myself, actually. But no, I'm not that person. So also had somebody who said that they helped her cross over. So maybe she's not even around anymore to enjoy the fact that the whole house is named after her. But
And now Elizabeth has taken over, and she is not nice.
Lizzie Borden.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's Bethany when she's like happy, and she's Lizzie Borden when she's hangry. It's like me. Like I'm Elsie when I'm normal, and then I'm Kelsey when I'm hungry. It's like that.
Bethany during the Disney Magic Light Hours, and then in the evening, Lizzie takes over.
Lizzie is a great name for a brothel too, so it would be much better. Lizzie's Sweet Horny Home or whatever. And
now, being that it used to be a brothel, have people heard sex noises? That's the question.
I have not been notified of sex noises, so I'm not sure people would be so open to tell me that. Or what, but no, I have not heard of any sex noises. The previous tenant who lived there for 2 years said that he basically had sex with one of the ghosts one night. John, you missed the conversation, but I told Ashley that I was ghost lube. I was gonna like work her into like being comfortable with this whole ghosty thing. So
that's when I knew she was my new favorite person.
That's
she
awesome.
Just called herself Ghost Lube.
A lot like ectoplasm, but
yeah, there you go.
I feel like so many jokes to be had with the tenant that had experiences with a ghost and ectoplasm. Like so many thoughts that just.
But he really pushed the buttons with it. Like he was constantly triggering them, and so he had a lot of the same stuff happening that I have, but he had a lot of really negative interactions with the house. But he was really like egging them on, and I don't do that. I treat them with respect. So
Yeah.
I want to know what ghost sex feels like.
I mean, that is a question.
I don't want to know, but I'm curious at the same time.
I kind of want to know. It's just, I don't know. Yeah.
Now, when John goes, he's going to hope for that ghost. We're going to have to put you in a room and be like, hey, Fred, you like brunettes.
Right.
Come get her.
John's going to walk in, drop his bags, and say, you have full consent.
At least you said bags.
It's all going to be good until, it's one of the, it's like,
it's Steve.
Oh, no.
He's hoping for Crazy Lizzie, and he gets William.
Oh, no, right. No.
That's stubble. It's fine.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny. Ashley like drops his bags, and that's not what I thought she was going to say. I thought she was going to say drops his pants. And, yeah.
As soon as you walk in the door,
I was like, no, I can't do that. Sorry.
We all appreciate that you can't do that, right?
As Elsie standing there with a cake, like, oh.
Right, like this is not that kind of
awkward.
Party. I have my cake.
I'm going now. You and the ghosts have fun.
Right? Oh no. This is not American Pie. Sorry, we're not doing that.
Stay away from my gluten-free cake.
I appreciate you coming on so much. If anybody wants to book your Airbnb or find out more about Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home, where can they do so?
You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram. I have posted some videos on TikTok, but yeah, so on Airbnb and VRBO, it's Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home, but it might just be easier to get the links from our Facebook or Instagram page. And again, it's located in Jackson, California, which is Northern California, about an hour outside of Sacramento, 2 hours from San Francisco.
Pretty awesome place. I've been there firsthand. I would highly recommend it to anyone that's out there trying to find haunted adventures. Please make Bethany's Home Sweet Haunted Home a stop on your map. You definitely won't regret that. All right, John, you want to bring us home?
I do. Thank you again, Elsie, for coming on, and I cannot wait to visit. And thank you, everybody who has listened to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
And I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And if you have any episode suggestions, questions, or comments, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss one crazy moment.
Until next time.